The episode began, the season finale, I should
30
say.
minutes.
There was a lot of stuff going on in King's Landing.
Yeah.
And Cersei's plan was revealed here, finally. It was a plan that most of us thought was going to happen, is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So there was sort of a feel of inevitability, I think, play out on that. I'll get a little inside baseball here, guys. We watched in the IGN office, a bunch of us together, and we knew pizza was coming, and all I kept thinking in my head is, please don't let the door ring while we're waiting to see wildfire explode in
I have to
King's
say,
Landing.
even though we guessed that, a lot of people thought, okay, the Great Wildfire plot, it all comes down to directing, right?
Yeah.
And Miguel Sapochnik, who directed last week's Battle of the Bastards, who directed Hard Home, he, clone him. I need him to direct every single episode. I know I've said that before, but seriously, what a masterful, web of suspense that to me at least, that I think he wove. Watching it actually was 30 minutes, I know, because the pizza came right after that and it paused at 30 minutes into the episode, but I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And Eric, myself, and the B team, Joshua Yell and Jim Faveda, and our video producer, our man with the plan behind the camera, Kyle Watson, all came in and watched it together, and it was just silence.
Yeah. And we should mention the score, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm always going to massacre his name. Ramin?
Ramin
We're not going to
has
say
a
your
last
name. Great score that I felt added to that sense of dread. Again, even though we had guessed what was going to happen, it added to the this is the inevitable thing that will finally happen before you. He, by the way, also is the composer on Person of Interest and just did an amazing score for their series finale this past week. So big week for him. And yeah, of course, I feel like while we did expect the wildfire to happen, then there was a question of who would survive and what would be left of them.
It's none of them except Cersei.
Yeah, Cersei was the only one to survive. I mean, Jaime obviously wasn't there when it happened, but anyone notable who was still in King's Landing, except for Qyburn, am I saying his name right?
Qyburn. Yeah. There's no you.
It's pretty much, they were all taken out. This was the end. I think as far as a popular character goes, Marjorie was the big deal, right?
Yeah. And her realization long before it even happened was the worst part. Even the High Sparrow realizing at the end. What just an amazing sequence. And also Tommen, I guess. I've been mispronouncing his name this whole time because David and Dan inside the episode. I like Tommen better. Tommen.
Yeah.
His suicide. Wow. That was a powerful scene.
I agree. And actually, in a way, that was the biggest surprise, even though, there was literally a prophecy saying that all her kids would die. So there was sort of, at some point you figured he would die. But I think that was kind of the gut punch of it all.
And it was actually her fault.
It was totally her fault. And it was interesting because one thing we've talked about was the King's Landing storyline was not as riveting this season, has a lot of other storylines. And one problem they had was that it was kind of all villains working against each other. Even though Marjorie wasn't a horrible, despicable villain in the scheme of things, there still wasn't a clear-cut good guy in all this. And so it was interesting when Cersei got her revenge. I like that it played morally very messy because you could briefly get caught up in the she's getting them, but then she's taken out Marjorie, who I think a lot of people liked. Then her son kills himself. And then even the scene with her, sending the mountain to do whatever he's doing to, I don't know what the character's name.
Septim Mordain.
There you go. Thank you. It's which, could be really despicable, sexual assault.
Yeah, please don't show him raping her.
Yeah, and we don't know, but it's Cersei is a pretty nasty she's a very nasty person. So I like that it kind of undercut, it couldn't just be get him, Cersei. I will say on a season that we've talked about has been kind of more fan servicey than most, I almost felt a little taken out of the scene when she goes, shame, shame. Because it almost seemed like a nod to how that had become a meme and a cosplay and such a deal that I was
I also, I do buy, of any word that, or 3 words that got held in her mind forever, that would be something she would want revenge. I fully agree with you. And it's interesting. My first thought, and I think it was a very intentional, comparison, Mad Queen Cersei. She's full-on heiress, and actually this is getting a little bit into potential season 7 spoilers, but what was so interesting is when Bran had that vision, when he saw Jaime kill the Mad King, he saw in there also a vision of the future, which is the scene we saw in this episode with all the barrels lighting on fire.
Right.
And I've had a couple people tweeting me, and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch those visions again. But in the scene where you see like Jaime killing someone on the floor, someone noticed it seemed like he's killing them with his left hand. Now, I haven't gone back to make sure that this person is not just losing their minds,
Right.
but it could be that we're actually seeing Jaime kill Cersei in the same way that like maybe he has to kill Cersei. And there's the look on his face when he arrives back and sees like, what have you done? I think they're definitely setting that up, though I don't know where they stand with each other at all anymore.
We had wondered, was Cersei, because we'd talked about, we figured the wildfire was her plan. Was she going to like burn King's Landing down? Would that be it? Like that, take it. And she did. And I mean, she took out important parts and important people.
I'm surprised there were many people left
Right.
after that.
But there was still a throne room. But yeah, things have sort of dramatically changed there, and they've gotten rid of all the other issues. The sparrow and all that is done. And so now it's going to be, she is now back on she has the throne for real for the first time. And now it's going to be about obviously sort of taking her down, while there's also the other threats out there like the White Walkers. So
it is really interesting that we had some more speed traveling around Westeros Express in this episode. Though right before we started filming this, Alan Sepinwall, great critic over at HitFix, made a comment where they were like, he sort of views it as David and Dan are no longer considering travel really an issue if it's going to impede the story, and good riddance. And I'm sort of at that point now too. I'm like, Gilly's baby is really old now, and we were like sort of cracking jokes about that. And like, you guys are doing your best to convey that time is passing, even though we aren't having to wait a lot of time. I'm personally
I think it's something fun to joke about, but it's not a big issue to me. There were some things. One thing that bugged me in this episode was that Elena found out off screen. Like I was kind of shocked when she said she killed my granddaughter. I was like, whoa, she already knows about that. That was like a lot had to have happened off screen for her to already get that information and now be adorned with it. When Jaime, many scenes later, was getting to King's Landing and didn't know anything had happened. So that's a little shaky to me. Kind of have to look the other way on it, because I did wonder, okay, Elena wasn't there, and she's a great, strong character. She is not going to just be cool with this.
Which exactly, like that was the Westeros Express thing. Is so she's already in Dorne, which is an
already has all the knowledge.
Already has all the knowledge, but Varys shows up there too,
Yes.
and he clearly came to Dorne because he was like, the Martells have never ever sided with the reigning house in Westeros. Dorne is the only one of the kingdoms to not consider itself under the Iron Throne's rule. So yes, obvious ally, and then he shows up and sees everything that's happened, and the Sand Snakes and Elia have taken over. Really interesting potential trifecta there. Teaming up against Queen Cersei. You have the Martells, who hate her. You have the Tyrell, who hates her, and now you have Dany needing a place to port and a place to dock and a place to lead her invasion. Suddenly Dorne seems a lot more interesting than it was at the very beginning of the season.
After they let Elena get in some sort of meta, I felt like knocks at the Sand Snakes.
Yeah, whatever. Character speaking for the audience this season is like a dime a dozen.
Give her some snark, So what did you think? What did you think of Cersei's big plan, and how, again, a lot of us had guessed in an ethereal way that's what she was doing. What did you think about seeing it all play out, and about her rising to power in a way that she never has? Literally, is she the Mad Queen? Let us know in the comments.
She is.
She is.